there's a relationship between smoking and mental health. So smoking rates are much higher amongst people with mental health conditions than those without. The more severe your mental health problems are, the more likely you are to smoke. So for example, people with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, they're 3 times more likely to smoke than the wider general population. And people with depression and anxiety have double the smoking rates of people without those conditions. Hello, I'm Debbie Robson. I'm a senior lecturer in tobacco harm reduction in the Nicotine Research Group, which is in the Addictions Department at King's College London. And here we're going to be discussing tobacco smoking and mental health. Across the whole adult population in the UK, around 14% of people currently smoke. And those rates, they've never been as low as they are today. Smoking's slowly come down across all age groups. So the highest smoking prevalence is amongst 25 to 34-year-olds, and it's lowest amongst people over 65. Those figures, though, they mask a big health disparity, because if you've got a mental illness, your rates of smoking are much higher. You've got 14% of the adult wider population who smoke, but if you've got schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, your smoking rates are triple that. And if you've got depression or anxiety, they're double that. We're not absolutely certain whether smoking is the cause or the effect of mental health problems. So there's 3 broad areas of research that have investigated this, the relationship between smoking and mental health. So the first one is the self-medication hypothesis, and that suggests that people with mental health problems, they smoke to manage their mental health condition, or that people who were prescribed medicines for, say, their experience of psychosis, they smoke to help with the side effects of their medication, mostly movement disorders. And it's a popular theory, but there's problems with the self-medication hypothesis. So, for example, the more cigarettes you smoke, the poorer your mental health is. For people who are prescribed some medicines, they need to take higher doses of those medicines to compensate for the fact that the tobacco smoke, the tar in the tobacco smoke, speeds up the metabolism of some medicines. So actually you need higher doses of medicines if you're a smoker with some medicines. And then we've known for some time that when you stop smoking, your mental health actually improves. And the longer you stop, the better your mental health gets. And then the other reasons that we think maybe that, this relationship between smoking and mental health is something to do, it's called the misattribution hypothesis. So what happens is when nicotine is delivered in tobacco smoke, it reaches the brain really, really quickly within seconds of inhaling tobacco smoke. And what that nicotine does, it then causes a release of dopamine. And dopamine release is a kind of teaches you to repeat the behaviour that's just gone before. And so what that does then, it makes smoking positively reinforcing, because what your brain wants to do is for you to repeat the action. So have another puff on a cigarette. But nicotine is also negatively reinforcing, because as a drug, it's really short acting. It doesn't stay in the body very long. So as soon as you've put out your last cigarette, your blood levels, which have spiked, slowly start to decline, and then you get withdrawal symptoms. And withdrawal symptoms are depression, anxiety, irritability. You can't concentrate. And so the quickest way to treat those symptoms is to have another cigarette. And so what the smoker comes to believe is that having a cigarette stops you from feeling depressed and anxious and irritable and you can't concentrate, when in fact what you're doing is you're just treating your own withdrawal symptoms. So then the final kind of body of research, which looks at that relationship between smoking and mental health, that involves genetic studies. So what researchers do there is they group the genes of millions and millions of people, and they're able to sort things out according to people's genetic code. And then they look at behaviours like smoking, and they look at illnesses like schizophrenia. And there's a kind of certain research methodology and statistical technique whereby it can help sort out what comes first, what's the cause and what's the effect, and other things that influence behaviours around smoking and mental illness. And we see in this growing body of research that is telling us that if you smoke, you are more likely to develop schizophrenia or depression in the first place. So we've got a whole body of research that is telling us that smoking is bad for your mental health in the first place because it's going to trigger mental illness. And then you've also got some research that suggests that, if you've got mental health problems, you're likely to smoke. And these people, this group of people also smoke much more heavily. So they'll smoke more cigarettes than people who don't have a mental health problem. And then that then leads to physical health problems. So the biggest killers from smoking are heart disease, respiratory disease, and cancers. And those conditions are much more prevalent in people with mental health problems. People with mental health problems are more likely to die from heart disease, cancers, respiratory disease. And some of that is largely to do with the high smoking rates. So we looked at this recently in patients in the South London and Maudsley NHS Foundation Trust. And we looked at the records of about 20,000 patients. And the smoking prevalence was so high, 77% of those people smoked. And what we were able to work out, we looked at the life expectancy of people who smoked and didn't smoke, and we worked out that smoking was accounting for half the life expectancy in women with severe mental illness and around a third of men with severe mental illness. So it's a really important kind of health behaviour to take into account when you're treating mental health problems. So smoking is a chronic relapsing condition that usually starts in childhood. And it's really important that mental health professionals in particular kind of get on board with, treating tobacco dependence when people come into mental health services.